Today we're going to be jumping into Genesis chapters 21 and 22. The Lord visited Sarah just as he said he would, and did for Sarah what he had promised. So Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the appointed time God had told him. Abraham named his son, whom Sarah bore him, Isaac. Now, Isaac is a good name. In fact, our youngest son is named Isaac. So, continuing on. When his son Isaac was 8 days old, Abraham circumcised him just as God had commanded him to do. Now, Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. That's old. Maybe not as old for that time period, but that's still pretty old. So, Sarah said, God has made me laugh. Everyone who hears about this will laugh with me. She went on to say, who would have said to Abraham and Sarah would nurse children, yet I have given birth to a son for him in this old age. So, a couple facts here. Men can actually produce children very late in life. Women usually lose disability after a few decades, so there's really nothing amazing on Abraham's part. But for Sarah, this was a miracle. The child grew and was weaned. Abraham prepared a great feast on the day Isaac weaned. But Sarah noticed that the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, the son who Hagar born to Abraham, was mocking. What? You're upset about what? A small child cracking jokes about an old lady giving birth? I would probably ignored it. Anyway, so she said to Abraham, banish that slave woman and her son, for the son of that slave woman will not be an heir along with my son Isaac. Okay, so this is a touchy subject. Technically, Ishmael was Abraham's firstborn son, and under Hebrew tradition, he would have had the birthright. But look here. Sarah's demand displeased Abraham greatly because Ishmael was his son. Of course, that was his firstborn son. But God said to Abraham, do not be upset about the boy or your slave wife. Do all that Sarah is telling you, because through your son Isaac, your descendants will be counted. But I will also make the son of the slave wife into a great nation, for he is your descendant too. Yeah, really. God took this mess and worked it out. By the way, Ishmael is not really followed up much in the Bible, but other historical texts suggest he is the ancestor of the Arabs. So it seems that God did bless his lineage, both in numbers and in wealth. You know, oil and all. Look at Saudi Arabia or Qatar. I'd say they've been blessed pretty well. But also had people's hands against them, as was also foretold. If you look at that area of the world, it's fairly war-torn. Early in the morning, Abraham took some food and a skin of water and gave them to Hagar, and put them on her shoulders. He gave her the child and sent her away. So she went wandering aimlessly through the wilderness of Beersheba. That just feels wrong. But then again, it might be best to separate Isaac and Ishmael to prevent birthright disputes. When the water in the skin was gone, she shoved the child under the shrubs. She went and sat down by herself across from him from quite some distance, about a bowshot away, for she thought, I refuse to watch the child die. So she sat across from him and wept uncontrollably. But God heard the boy's voice. The angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and asked her, what is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid, for God has heard the boy's voice right where he is crying. Get up, help the boy up, and hold him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation. Then God enabled Hagar to see a well of water. She went over and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. That's awesome. They have hope for the future, God's blessing, and God is giving them what they need right in that moment. Water. It's not often that you get all of those things at once. God was with the boy as he grew. He lived in the wilderness and became an archer. He lived in the wilderness of Paran. His mother found a wife for him in the land of Egypt. Keep in mind that Hagar was an Egyptian, so this was not abnormal. So it makes sense that in a culture she would find an Egyptian wife for her son. That was kind of the thing back then. It's a cultural thing, not a scriptural thing. Some people are still like this today, others are not. At that time, Abimelech and Phicol, it's spelled Phicol, Phicol, the commander of his army, said to Abraham, God is with you in all that you do. Now swear to me right here in God's name that you will not deceive me, my children, or my descendants. Show me and the land where you are staying the same loyalty that I have shown you. I get why Abimelech would have trust issues with this family, right? Abraham said, I swear to do this. But Abraham lodged a complaint against Abimelech concerning a well that Abimelech's servants had seized. When did this happen? I do not know who has done this thing, Abimelech replied. Moreover, you did not tell me. I did not hear about it until today. Abraham took some sheep and cattle and gave them to Abimelech. The two of them made a treaty. Then Abraham set 7 ewe lambs apart from the flock by themselves. Abimelech asked Abraham, what is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs that you have set apart? He replied, you must take these 7 ewe lambs from the hand as legal proof that I dug this well. That is why he named that place Beersheba, because the two of them swore an oath there. By the way, Beersheba literally translates to well of the oath, if that didn't make any sense before. So they made a treaty at Beersheba. Then Abimelech said to Phicol, the commander of his army, return to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there he worshipped the Lord, the eternal God. So Abraham stayed in the land of the Philistines for quite some time. Abimelech came around and worshipped one true God. Sometime after these things, God tested Abraham. He said to him, Abraham. I am here, Abraham replied. God said, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, to the land of Moriah. Offer him up there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains which I will indicate to you. Keep in mind, God promised to create a nation for this child. If he is sacrificed, how can he become a nation? Abraham must be assuming that God can resurrect him. However, this is complicated by the fact that God forbids child sacrifice, just flat out. Maybe this is the incident which evolved into that aberrant practice. Because, you know, all false religions come from the true faith. Anyway, early in the morning, Abraham got up and saddled his donkey. He took 2 of his young servants with him, along with his son Isaac. When he had cut the wood for the burnt offering, he started out in the place God had spoken to him about. He had the boy cut the wood for his own sacrifice. That seems kind of cold. But then again, we know that Jesus carries his own wooden cross around 1700 years later. This brings about the best change in the world. On the 3rd day, Abraham caught sight of the place in the distance. So he said to his servants, you two stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go up. We will worship there and then return to you. This man of God told his servants that we will go up and return. This shows that Abraham knew somehow that Isaac would be okay. The book of Hebrews later suggests that Abraham did believe that God would resurrect his son. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac. And then He took the fire and the knife in his hand, and the two of them walked together. Isaac said to his father, Abraham, my father. What is it, my son? He replied. Here is the fire and the wood, Isaac said, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Wait for it. God will provide for himself the lamb for the burnt offering, my son, Abraham replied. The two of them continued on together. See, he knew that God would somehow save this child. When they came to the place God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. Next he tied up his son Isaac and placed him on the altar of wood. And then Abraham reached out his hand, took the knife, and prepared to slaughter him. That is devotion. But also faith, as he knew God would somehow save or resurrect the boy. Of course, he may have been interested to witness the resurrection. Thought it would be cool to see. But the Lord's angel called to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham. Here I am, he answered. Do not harm the boy. The angel said, do not do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God because you did not withhold your son, your only son, from me. What I find odd is God knows all and did not need to learn this. He knew what would have happened. This is the second time God has investigated something so far in Scripture. Abraham looked up and saw behind him a ram caught in the bushes by his horns. So he went over to the place and got the ram and offered up as a burnt offering instead of his son. Abraham called the name of that place, the Lord Provides. And it is said to this day, and the mountain of the Lord's provision will be made. Awesome. This is one of the things that Abraham was hoping for. What's interesting here is that God told him to sacrifice a child and then stopped him. So what does this mean? God praised Abraham's intent to obey, not the fact that it did not happen due to an outside factor. This is why God judges your heart, and not necessarily all of your actions. The Lord's angel called to Abraham a second time from heaven and said, I solemnly swear by my own name, decrees the Lord, that because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will indeed bless you. And I will greatly multiply your descendants so that they will be countless as the stars in the sky and the grains of sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the strongholds of their enemies because you have obeyed me. All the nations of the earth will pronounce blessings on one another using the name of your descendants. Then Abraham returned to his servants, and they set out together for Beersheba, where Abraham stayed. That must have been an awkward walk home. After these things, Abraham was told, Milcah also has borne children to your brother Nahor. Uz, the firstborn, his brother Buz, Kumal, the father of Aram, Kesed, Hazo, Fildesh, Jaleph, and Bethuel. Now Bethuel became the father of Rebekah. These are the 8 sons of Milcah born to Abraham's brother Nahor, his concubine, whose name was Remuel, who also bore him children, Tebeh, Gehem, Tehash, and Maacah. Now the beginning of that word in Hebrew adds the word look, as to note the importance of this genealogy. But that's about it right now, because that is the birth and childhood of Isaac. This will continue in the next video next week. That's all I've got. Don't forget to like, subscribe, click notifications, and follow me on YouTube stuff.